that where I am right now and where you are, most all of you that I know, um, it is Sabbath. It is the seventh day of the week. And we know that the Most High, first off, let me start like this. Let me start like this. Again, before I continue, I want to make sure y'all can hear me. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? I want to make sure everybody can clearly hear me. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. Let me start like this. The Most High gave us the Sabbath, and He gave it to us for us to rest. Am I correct? I mean, didn't He command us to rest on the Sabbath? He did do that, right? When He means rest, what does He mean? Now, we're not even debating whether we should be obedient to the Sabbath. As Israelites, let the Gentiles debate that, whether there's a law and whether they should keep the Sabbath. That's their business. But as Israelites, we know that the Most High, our God, gave us the Sabbath. And we know He gave it to us to rest, right? To rest. Now, when He means rest, obviously He told us He doesn't want us working, right? But it's more than us just not working. The object is more than just physical rest from labor. That shall labor and do all thy work 6 days, but the seventh day is the Sabbath. He wants us to rest mentally, right? Spiritually. He wants us to lay our burdens down and have a mental, spiritual, and physical rest. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? I mean, that's what He wants. And as His people, He has pointed to us, as we know, that the Sabbath of rest is a sign. He said it's a sign between Him and us forever, right? Forever. So that as we lay down all our burdens, all our problems, all our issues on the Sabbath, to give Him honor and glory, to set aside everything of this earth, just to give our Father the honor and the glory, to stop all our worries, to stop all our cares, to stop all our problems, all our bills, all our issues, and just give Him the praise. It's a blessing to us. I mean, we know that if we've ever experienced it. When we're able to lay aside everything and not let anything bother us, and just let it all loose and trust the Father, and not worry about no bills, not worry about somebody's issues, not worry about anything, it's a blessing. The Most High will put His Spirit on us and we will receive a blessing. Now, that being said, we all understand that we're on the earth. We're not in heaven. We're not in the kingdom. We're on the earth. And as servants of the Most High on the earth, there is an enemy that wants to stop us from getting our rest. Right? I mean, we are aware of that. We have an enemy that is determined to mess up our rest. And the Bible tells us that we should not be ignorant of his devices. Right? So like we know when Friday comes, well, even before Friday, but especially when Friday comes, we know that the enemy is going to put forth special efforts. Listen to me now. So that we don't enter into that rest. Do y'all hear me? He's going to put forth special efforts. He's going to get us to try to focus on somebody else, some issue, some problem, right? He's going to try to get us focused on something other than rest. Because while we are on the earth, the enemy does not want us to enjoy the rest of the Sabbath. He does not want us to have a spiritual, a physical, an emotional rest. He wants us to be stressed. He wants us to be worried. He wants us to be combative. And if he gets us to do that, he wins. Are y'all hearing me? If we allow any person to get under our skin, or any situation, or any circumstance, especially on Friday, we're going to let the enemy take away our rest. And we will lose a blessing. We will lose a blessing. And I'll give you an example. Today is Friday, as I said. Now, I think I testified before that my boss understands I'm a Sabbath keeper. In fact, he mentioned it to me, and understands that I leave early on Friday. He understands that. And I work extra from Monday to Thursday so that Friday I could leave early. They have no problem with that. So normally on Friday, I come in at 7 and leave at noon. That's what I normally do on Friday. But this week, my daughter graduated, both my daughters graduated from college. And I took the day off on Wednesday, and I took the day off on Thursday. Wednesday was the actual graduation, and it was a late night, and I knew it was going to be, so I took off Thursday. I planned it already. Thank you. But because of that, I was going to work until 2 o'clock today. So I was going to come in early again and then work until 2 o'clock. And as a matter of fact, one of the managers sent me a message last night late asking me if I was going to come in early as usual, because a bigwig was coming. One of our clients, 3 bigwigs of our clients were coming in today, which is unusual. And one of them, usually they come in by about 8:30, 9 o'clock, but one of them wanted to come in by 7:30, and they know that I come in early, so they were making sure that I was going to be there, so that not only would I be there for us to look good as a company, but that I would have the door unlocked, because I'm the first one in the office. And I said, I said, this just so happened I was going to come in at 6:45 anyway. So I said, I'm going to be there at 6:45. So when he comes in 7:30, don't worry, I'm there. So I was there, as I said, at 6:45. And about 1 o'clock, one of my bosses, who I really respect and admire, he came to me and he said, we really had this problem. We need to have this thing fixed, and we blah, blah, blah. It was an IT issue. And I said, okay, I'll help with that. And we all got together, all of us in the office together, and decided to divide up this problem into pieces, and each of us tried to take care of it. And we had a half hour to do it. Well, to let you, long story short, all of a sudden it was 3 o'clock. And I hadn't left yet. And I still had to go to the store and get some things. Normally I leave at 12. And I could see where this was headed. So as we were getting at 2 o'clock, I knew I was supposed to leave. And I said, I'm supposed to leave now. And they all knew I was supposed to leave, but the problem was still persisting that we were trying to solve. So I said, I'm going to stay. And so I stayed, and I was trying to help. And then all of a sudden, one thing led to another. And even the computers and the file systems and everything was out of whack. And why was that? Because it was Friday. Because it was Friday, and I was supposed to leave early. So 3 o'clock came. And everybody knew I was lost. And one of them, actually at 2 o'clock, said, Todd, aren't you supposed to leave? And I said, yes. I said, but I'm going to stay extra hour. And they were all happy. They said, Todd, you're really a team player, blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah. I said, but at 3 o'clock, I'm out of here now. So we were trying to solve this issue. 3 o'clock came, and it didn't quite get solved. But when I got ready to leave, everybody was like, thanks for staying, blah, blah, blah. But now I was behind. I was in traffic, blah, 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 blah. I had to stop by the store. I got home. I was tired. And I decided, it was pouring rain. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go for a walk. It was pouring rain, and I put on my raincoat, I put on my hat, and I went out there in the pouring rain. And for an hour, I walked to get my head clear, because you know what day it is, right? And I went out there and I got me some air, and I felt so. Even though I was soaking wet when I came in, because it was pouring rain here in the Washington D.C. area today, but I needed that air. And I needed that walk. And so when I came back, I was soaking wet, but I felt good and I felt refreshed, and my mind was better prepared for the Sabbath. Because we understand that the enemy attacks us more on Friday, and he wants us to go at each other. He wants us to go at problems. He wants us to get caught up in anything but the rest. Okay? I just wanted to share that with you, because one of the things we're studying about today, also, we're looking today at the little horn and the 2300 days. And that and what we studied last week in Daniel chapter 7 about the little horn. In fact, let's look at it. Daniel chapter 7. Let's just look at it as by way of review. We looked at last week. We looked at Daniel chapter 2. And then we went into Daniel 7. And when we looked at Daniel chapter 2, right, and you know what? You know what else? One other thing I wanted to bring up. My son, my oldest son, was supposed to come to the graduation, okay? And we had hail and electric. I mean, really, we had hail here in Northern Virginia on Tuesday night. I mean, it was hailing, it was pouring, raining, and it was electrical storm. It was so bad that at first the airline said that his plane was going to be delayed by 2 hours. So he was supposed to fly in at 9. He wasn't going to get into 11. Then they changed it to 12. And then we had another friend coming in, and the same thing with her. She was coming from a different direction. And my son was mad. I mean, he was mad because he said he spent his last $30 on his luggage having to come in, and it's going to be delayed. And he was at the airport, and he was just whining. And I was not in the mood to hear that. And so he called me, and boy, I met him with some words about him whining about his luggage and all this. And make a long story short, he got mad and hung up on me. Well, I was really on him when he called about that. And so my wife, when I got home, he had called my wife, and my wife said, "What did you say to him?" And I was telling her, I said, "Now this is the thing. We know when we're at the point, right?" And so I said to her, I said, "Listen, leave it alone, because I know how I am. I know myself." And I said, "Leave it alone." I said, just leave it alone." And she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Nothing." And she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Nothing." So she asked me a third time. And so I said, when you say what's wrong and I say nothing, what are you getting from that? And she said that you don't want to talk about it. And I said, "You are correct." I said, "Leave it alone." Well, she pushed again. And that third or that fourth time was one time too many. And your boy went off again. Right? That was Tuesday. So as it turns out, the electrical storm was so bad that our family friend got in after midnight, like 1 o'clock, something like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I went and picked her up. My son's plane was canceled. He couldn't even come. So now I paid for his ticket. and the plane was canceled. He couldn't come at all. So I was up till maybe 3:30 in the morning with the airline, making sure I got my money back. And I did get my money back. Or at least they said they were going to give it to me back. It was like 3:30 in the morning. I got our friend from the airport later, like I said, maybe 2 o'clock in the morning. But because I pray and I have to give the Most High the glory, the Spirit of the Most High was talking to me about how I spoke to my son and how I spoke to my wife, but especially my son. I did want my wife to leave it alone, and she didn't. But my son was having a hard time, and I shouldn't have broke on him like that. So the next day I called him and I said, he answered, and I could tell he was hesitant. He didn't pick up the phone right away. It rang for a little while, and I knew he was thinking about whether he should pick it up. But he picked it up. And the first thing I said, son, I'm sorry I spoke to you like that. I was out of turn. I shouldn't have said that to you. And I could hear the relief come over him that he was glad I said that. So then he said, you know, Pop, I'm sorry I was whining, blah, blah, blah. And we had a really good conversation. Because whenever you lose it like that, and it's during a week, Asatan is trying to get you to, he's trying to set you up for Friday. He's trying to set you up for Friday. Okay. And so sometimes it takes an apology to make things right, to be able to restart, to be able to start over, and to be able to be clean from what the enemy just tried to put on you. You're hearing what I'm saying? And so what I'm learning, and I told y'all, is that what I'm learning is in these last days, the patience, the humility, all right, the meekness. I'm learning the strength of that more and more, because the Bible continually shows us that we must be patient in these last days. We must put up with some things, and we must be calm in the midst of situations whereas normally we wouldn't be calm. And the Most High will continually and I was wondering why these things were happening Tuesday night. It was because I would expect it halfway on a Friday, but it was Tuesday night. And I was like, why are these things? But he was testing me again, bringing up these situations where I would have to be calm. And he's going to continue to do that. And I know that. And he's going to do it to you. He's going to do it to me. He's going to do it to all of us who are his chosen in these last days. He has to. Because we have to get to the point where we're not moved by these things. Regardless, we're not moved at all. And so here on Friday, as we enter into the rest, we recognize, or we should recognize, that the enemy is always at work to take away our rest. He's always at work to do that. But we also recognize it and we overcome him because we know what he's trying to do. The Most High gives us the power of grace. He gives us the foreknowledge, right? So that we can overcome. The little horn also is seeking. See, and that's another way. See, sometimes the enemy comes at us and you know, he hits our weak spots, right? He tries to hit our weak spots. But then there's times where, and he always tries to hit our weak spots, and he tries to hit our weak spots head on. But then there's times when he tries to do an end run, or he tries to do it on the slide. And that's where this little horn comes in. See, everybody's looking for a mark of the beast where you're being forced to receive the mark. And that's where everybody's making a mistake. If you follow what's going on in earth and you see what's going on, what the enemy does is he uses the powers that be to basically get people to beg for their own destruction, to beg for their own enslavement, to beg for their own, enslavement is the best way to say it. When the mark of the beast is made manifest, the majority of the earth is going to think it's a good thing and they're going to run to it. They're not going to be running from it. They're going to think the people that refuse it, that something's wrong with them. And they're going to be suspicious of us that refuse it. And it's going to be so clear to us that this is the mark. And then we're going to be able to verbalize why it's the mark. They're going to think we're crazy because the majority of the planet is going to run to it. Why? Because the little horn, as we're going to study, he has the devil, as the Bible says, the enemy, Asatan, deceiveth the whole world. He uses the little horn as his main tool to deceive the earth. Look, You see people going to church on Sunday by the millions. Isn't that correct? I mean, you see people that even know that the seventh day is the Sabbath. They know it's the Sabbath. They know you don't have to convince them. And they still go to church on Sunday and they don't keep the Sabbath. And they give you all kind of excuses. So you have people that are being deceived willingly, right? You got people, you can tell them that the Christian, you can show them in the scriptures that Christianity is not in the scriptures, that the Messiah didn't start any new religion called Christianity, that Abraham didn't create any religion called Judaism, that it's not in the scriptures, that these are man-made religions. You can show them from the Bible and they can acknowledge what you're saying is true and they'll still follow the error. Okay? Every 4 years, a bunch of people stand up and run for president. And people can see that these people, I don't care what side they are, they could be Democrat or Republican or anything else. They can see the people getting lied to their face, and they will defend the people to the teeth. You can see it. I mean, it's Mr. Trump, the current president, is an easy target. It's an easy example. This man lies. This man talks about how he fondles women, and this man has all kinds of issues. Yet you can't get any of his supporters to ever say anything negative about him. That's a sign, brothers and sisters. It's telling you that people are ready. They're asking for their destruction. Listen here. As Israelites, right? We are against anything that the Bible is against. Is that correct? Am I telling the truth or am I not? If the Bible speaks against something, if it goes against the commandments, statutes, and judgments of the Most High, we are against it. Well then, the Bible clearly says, man should not lie with mankind as with womankind. Doesn't it say that? Doesn't it say that? Man should not lie with mankind as with womankind. It said women should not lie with women as with a man. A woman should not wear a man's clothes and a man should not wear a woman's clothes, right? If Barack Obama supported all that, and we supported him, right? Barack Obama supported all that. But because he was black, we voted for him. He's the homosexual president, right? I mean, so we can't say one or another. They all have these things in front of our faces, and people will still support these people regardless. It's showing us that the earth is ready for the mark. They'll ask for it when it's time. Okay? They'll ask for it. Okay? It's showing us. So the enemy, the little horn, comes in on the sly and he is deceiving the earth. Here's this man flying around his private jet, the Pope, right? Wearing white, smiling at everybody, right? Everybody think he's so nice. This man is head of a church that says they have power to change the Most High's laws. This man is head of a church that created the Jesuit order that infiltrated every organization on the earth and caused many to be murdered and put to death. This man is part of a church that has caused more bloodshed on the earth than every church in any war. Right? Yeah, he smiled in our faces and everybody thinks it's all good. Right? I mean, that's what happens, isn't it? So you can see people are being deceived right in front of their face, right? Right in front of their face. You can look at any denomination. I don't care which one. You could look at the Mormons, the SDAs, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Baptists, the Lutherans. You can look at any Christian denomination and you could go down the line and you can see where each of them is going against the Bible. You can see where each of them is going against the Bible. You can see it. Okay? And you can show it to the people that are in those churches and they will still stay there. They will not leave it, regardless of all the error you show them from the scriptures. Because no matter what any of them say, the scriptures are not their ultimate. They'll tell you, oh, we go by the Bible. Well, really? Really? I mean, you could show them, each one of them, why they don't go by the Bible. And they will not leave them churches. They will not. It's showing you, brothers and sisters, people are being solidified in this deception and the error. And it will get to the point. Like, for example, listen here. Flu shots. It's been shown that flu shots kill just as many people as they don't hardly prevent the flu. In fact, people die from the flu shot. Yet every year, people lining up to get the flu shot. Okay, see that? Right? Doctors, there are doctors that tell you that chemotherapy is poison. It's not good for you, and the likelihood is you'll die of the chemotherapy as quickly as you'll die from the cancer. And yet every doctor insists you get it, right? And people rush to it like they're doing the right thing when they get cancer by getting burned up and cut up, right? That's what I'm saying. It's sitting right in front of us, and we still going for it. The error, the deception is right in front of us, and it's all this little horn. This little horn is the biggest prime example, because religion is the issue of the last days. Okay? Religion is the issue of the last days. You say, what are you talking about? See, many people in the confusion and deception that's out here fail to see what's, when you're understanding the scriptures, this is a war between the Messiah and Asatan. Messiah is representing the Father. Asatan is representing himself, and he's representing rebellion against the commandments of the Father. And while Messiah is trying to point us to the Father, to worship the Father, Asatan is trying to point us to worship him, and he's doing it by introducing us to the worship of man, by telling us we can be gods in various ways, creating man-made beliefs, man-made religions, man-made rules, man-made traditions, and people follow those things more than the word of the Most High. I mean, you can see it. The commandments, statutes, and judgments that we studied in the book of Deuteronomy, let me ask you, how many people you know that want to focus on obedience to the commandments, statutes, and judgments that we read about in the book of Deuteronomy? How many people do you know, right? Of all the people you know, friends, families, associates, relatives, you know, you might worship with some people, right, that do it. But I think you and I will agree that the majority of the people that you personally know are not interested. Right? Not interested. So that the earth is not interested in keeping the commandments, statutes, and judgments of the Most High. Yet, check this out. Now, how many people, think about this now. Compare the number of people that you know that desire to be obedient to the Father and keep his commandments and statutes and judgments versus the people that you know that are faithful to Christmas. How many people you know are faithful to Christmas but unfaithful to the commandments, statutes, and judgments of the Most High? How many people do you know are faithful to Easter? Like they really are into Easter, and yet they will not obey. They may not even care to be aware of the commandments, statutes, and judgments of the Most, much less obey them. They may not even care to be aware of what they are. Right? Like, how many people do you know that are faithful to buy candy for kids at Halloween, but will not keep the commandments, statutes, and judgments of the Most High. How many people do you know want to get married and have a ring on their finger and have a ceremony in the state versus wanting to get married according to the scriptures, strictly by the scriptures? How many do you know that want to do that? You see that you could go down the line. There's a and you know, we still got a lot to learn of the scriptures, right? We still got a lot to learn, but what we know, even a small bit, what we know of the scriptures, we can see that most of the people of the earth are not interested in the scriptures. They're interested in pieces of the scriptures that go with their beliefs, but not with this, what the Most High commands us to do. Okay. And it's all, again, it's religion is steering people in deception. And it starts again with Asatan and this little horn that we're looking at here tonight. Now, I'm going to start now, just reviewing now. Remember, there were 4 kingdoms. Again, there was Babylon, the Medes and the Persians, the Greeks, and then finally the Roman Empire. We saw that the Roman Empire was going to be in existence in some form or fashion until the kingdom of Messiah is established. Okay? We saw that in Daniel 2 with Nebuchadnezzar's dream and the 4 metals and the miry clay and the statue. And then we looked at Daniel 7 and we saw 4 beasts. We saw a lion, we saw a bear, we saw a leopard, and then we saw a beast with 10 horns on his head. And we saw, as we looked at these 4 beasts, we saw that they come together and they make up that last beast. And we saw that beast in Revelation chapter 13. Remember, we looked at Revelation 13 and we saw a beast that had 10 horns, and it looked like a bear, it looked like a lion, and it looked like a leopard all together, and it had 10 horns. And we saw that these 4 beasts together make up what we see in Revelation 13, and that's the last power on earth that comes out of Rome. And we saw that fourth beast, that 4th power, the iron represented Rome, and we saw that this was going to change its form. Like it was going to start off like the others, a military and political power, but it was going to change into a religious-based power. And that's where the little horn came in, right? So let's take a look at Daniel chapter 7. And I'm going to start at verse 17 and read from verse 17 down to verse 25 of Daniel chapter 7. From verse 17 down to verse 25, this is by way of review. These great beasts, which are 4 kings which shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Then I would know the truth of the 4th beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth, that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Thus he said, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of his head are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. Now, the little horn representing the popery, representing the Roman Church, the Catholic Church, and its pope. It's not just one pope. It's the office of the pope. I need you to understand. Many people like to focus on one particular pope or another. It doesn't matter who the pope is. It's the office of the pope. Okay? Because this is the situation. Listen carefully. We know from study of the scriptures, and I defy anybody to show me otherwise in the scriptures, any man on the earth. The scriptures never speak of an assembly called Christianity with a son of Japhet at his head that says Mary is an intercessor and should be prayed to, and makes up prayers like Hail Mary to her. The scriptures never say that the church is the Holy Spirit, and that there's a man on the earth that you call Holy Father. The scriptures never say that. It never created such a religion. It doesn't exist in the Bible. It does not exist in the Bible. And while I'm at it, the scriptures never created any religion where a group of people from Japhet coming from the north and have this book called the Talmud. It never created such a religion where they would deny the Messiah that he ever came. And they come from the north. No bloodline to Abraham at all. Never created such a religion. It's not in the scriptures. It's not there. It never spoke of any man named Muhammad that was going to come with any other book and tell you you had to go to Saudi Arabia as a holy place and bow to a square stone in the middle of the desert. It never spoke of such a religion. I'm talking to the people that are interested in following the Bible. I am not talking to people not interested in following the Bible. See, as Israelites, we are those that look at the Word. We are the people of the Word, the people of the covenant of the Most High, who gave us his name as Yah, whose Son is the only begotten of him, where he has paid the penalty for the sins of his people. He shall call his name Yahweh Shai, for he shall save his people from their sins. We don't know any other God. In fact, he himself says, there is no other God. He says in his word, I know not any. And his Messiah, who came to us to show us the way to the Father, which we had lost. He said, call no man father on the earth. You have one Father, even Yah. So you have this entity that is fooling the planet Earth. And from this entity, there's tentacles that have spread out and created other denominations as offshoots of this system. So it doesn't matter who the man as the Pope is. The fact that you have this church and this office and this system is an abomination to the Most High. That's why it says he shall speak great words against the Most High. Because any man that will tell you to call him Holy Father is blaspheming the Holy Father of heaven. You understand? Any man that tells you to point to a human being, a sinner, and say he's the Holy Father is blaspheming Yah. Any entity that tells you you need to pray to Mary or anything else but the Father in heaven is blaspheming the Father. Okay? It's not complicated. But see, people try to make it complicated because they want to serve these other gods. And check this out. We have no problem with somebody wants to choose another God. We choose the true God. The problem that we're coming to, brothers and sisters, is because we are human beings on the earth and we're in the middle of a war, a spiritual war. The enemy is going to try to force us to worship him. That's what it's coming down to. And I say force us. He's not going to have to force the rest of the earth. They are begging already to worship him. That's no problem. They have no problem. There's 1 billion Catholics. There's a couple of billion Muslims. There's hundreds of millions of offshoot Christians from the Catholic Church and all these other denominations. Then you got the Hindus that are hundreds of millions of them and Buddhists, millions of them. You got Baha'i, all kind of people already. See, brothers and sisters, let me tell you, unless we are solidly in the spirit of righteousness from the Father, we're going to be on the other side. There's no question. There's no question. There is no middle ground. Either you're going to reflect perfectly the righteousness of the Father, or you're not. And this little horn is determined that you will reflect perfectly Asatan, that you will reflect perfectly the gods of this world, that you will be self-centered, that you will be lawless, that you will not obey the word. He is determined that should happen. That's why he wants to take away your rest. See, if he can pry you away from your rest, see, then he can get you to go the rest of the way toward him. He's trying to do that, brothers and sisters. We can't let him. And this is what the situation is. We understand that's what he's trying to do. We know what the commandments of the Most High is. We know that we can't obey him except through grace and faith by his spirit of righteousness. That's how we can obey him. Without his spirit of righteousness and grace, we can't obey him. We understand that. It's just like the Apostle Paul said, we who are Israelites by nature, we and not sinners of the Gentile, we understand that we're saved through the faith of Yahushua and not by the works of the law. We're not justified by obedience. Obedience comes as a spirit of righteousness from the Father. We understand that. And our focus is to be obedient by that spirit. And if we can influence other people that belong to the Most High and they just don't realize it, by the spirit of obedience that we follow, praise the Most High Yah. But if people want to worship other gods and do what they do and, you know, serve these other churches and these other beliefs and these other religions, hey, that's their business. We have no problem. The issue is going to arise with us when they try to force us to do their thing. That's when the issue is going to arise. Okay. So this little horn speaks great words against the Most High, but he does it with a smile on his face. He does it while he's doing the cross sign across his face and chest. He does it when he's saying he's blessing the people. He's speaking great words against the Most High. He's being crafty. While his Jesuits and his Jesuit trained people are infiltrating and taking over all the earth and bringing the man-based theology, the man-based religion into all the churches, into all the religions. Because let me ask you a question. Anybody listening, what do people think about somebody that believes the Bible is literal and wants to obey every word of it? What do they think about a person that says, I believe there was a flood? I believe that the children of Israel walked through the Red Sea on dry ground. I believe there was plagues. I believe that the Messiah is definitely coming back for real. They think you're crazy, right? They think you're crazy. Even people in these churches think you're crazy, right? That happened. And they're going to think you're still more crazy. As we get closer to the end of this thing, they're going to think you're still more crazy. That's really what's going to happen. And they're going to say, you have lost your mind. These people are out of their mind. These fanatical cultists, they're crazy. That's exactly what they're going to do. Yeah. And that's when we're going to have issues. And that's what this whole thing is about. We're being prepared for the moment when it hits the fan. You can't run from it. It's going to hit you it's going to hit you straight in the face. You can't run from it. This is a fight you can't run from. Now, you could try to avoid it, but at the end of the day, if you're going to be around, you're going to face Asatan and his enemy and his armies and his obedient followers. You're going to face them. You're going to have to take a stand for the righteousness of your Father. You're going to have to, and I'm going to have to. And we are being prepared to be able to do that with a humility and patience that is combined with a holy boldness. We're being prepared. Studying these prophecies, studying the true gospel, understanding the truth of the Israelite nation, we are being prepared for that so that we can meet it head on, brothers and sisters. The Most High wants us to do it. Hey, listen, when Moses was telling Pharaoh, let my people go, did he send a messenger to tell Pharaoh, let my people go? Or did he stand in Pharaoh's face and say, let my people go? I mean, he was right there. He walked up in the palace to let my people go. When Elijah was told, Aliyah, when he was told that there was going to be a famine, he walked up into Ahab's palace in the court and he said, there's not going to be no rain until I give my word. And he left. John the Baptist stood up in front of the king and said, you shouldn't be married to that woman. That's your brother's wife. You ain't got no business touching her. It's against the Most High's law. Cost him his head, but he had to stand firm. Okay? The Apostle Paul stood before Caesar, and he said, at my first answer, no man stood with me. And he said, and I was saved out of the mouth of a lion. And then he said, it's time for me to depart. My time is at hand. I'm ready to be offered. He stood firm. And all the prophets the same. Jeremiah said, this place is going to fall like Shiloh, and they were going to kill him for saying that. And he said, hey, do with me as seemeth good. But no, if you kill me, you kill the messenger of the Most High, because I came with his word. All of us are going to have to take the same type of stand. And we're being prepared. As only our God, our Father, can prepare us through the Messiah. We're being prepared. I can't prepare you, and you can't prepare me. But the Father prepares all of us by his Spirit, by his angels. through the Messiah's ministry in the holy place of the heavenly sanctuary. He's preparing us. Because this is what all these prophecies are coming down to. This little horn, we're going to have to stand against the agents of the little horn. We're going to have to stand against the agents of the enemy. We're going to have to stand against them when we're going to be forced to. Our back is going to be up against the wall. We're going to have to make that decision. The whole earth is going to be between a rock and a hard place. Either worshiping the beast in his image and receiving the mark, or being under the penalty of death. The whole earth is going to have to make that decision. Now, most of them, it's going to be an easy decision. They're going to follow the beast, and they're going to worship him, and they're going to receive the mark in their forehead or their right hand. There's no question. The majority of the earth is going to run to that. I'm not even saying they're not even going to be forced to it. They're going to run to it. Then there's going to be some of us that's going to fold because we really was never here. There's people that fake it. And they're not being real, and you can talk to them till you're blue in the face, and they're not going to be real until the day they fold and they turn over, like Judas did. There's going to be a lot of Judases out here. Then there's going to be that remnant that was meaning business from the beginning, that decided to take the stand for the truth of the word and of the Most High and would not move off of it and just got stronger in it. As the storm got stronger, so did their faith. So did the grace that was upon them. Just like the Bible says about the apostles. It said with great power, they gave witness to the master, Yahushua. That is the Hebrew Messiah, with great power. And it says great grace was upon them all. This is where we're going to be. This is where we're going to have to be. And the Most High is preparing us to be right there. He's preparing us. Everything you and I are dealing with, every time we are wrestling, every time the enemy is allowed to try to take away our rest, every time he's trying to mess our head up, it's to prepare us. Believe it. Embrace it. It's to prepare us. You understand? Every time. Praise the Most High. So let's continue. Daniel 7, from verse 26 to 28. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. See, Daniel was being shown all of these things, man. And he was being shown how the little horn is going to seem to prevail against the saints. Look at it. Look at what the situation is as I'm talking to you. First off, we talked about this earlier, really and truly, we have learned from the scriptures that there's but one true people. It's the nation of Israel. We have learned from the scriptures that the nation of Israel is scattered throughout the earth in the last days. We have learned from the scriptures that the curse of Deuteronomy 28 has come upon them, and that now they're awakening slowly out of that curse. How many people recognize everything I just said as true? How many people on the earth, brothers and sisters? Not many. Very few. Very few. Talking about on an earth that has billions of people on it. I mean, you might be able to count the number of people that believe what I just said in the hundreds, maybe a few thousand, but it's very few. Okay? Very small number. That's the condition that we're in. And we talked about the majority of the planet is under deception, and many are under willful deception. Like they will know something is true, but because of reputation, because of convenience, because of embarrassment, because of loss of friends or being lowly or not wanting to take a stand on their own by themselves, they will not follow the truth. There's a lot of people like that. There's a lot of people like that. Okay? So you can see it right now, right? But the Bible is telling us at the end, the kingdom is ours. The kingdom is ours. Because the Bible says that the kingdom shall belong to the people of the saints of the Most High. That is the people that keep his commandments, statutes, and judgment, his scattered nation, his people that are outcasts of this earth. The kingdom belongs to them. The rich, the powerful, the famous, they better enjoy what they have now. The people that enjoy all this privilege, the people that enjoy the blessings that come with earthly power, they better enjoy it, because this is their heaven. Really, this what we have right here, this is their heaven. These Federal Reserve notes, that's their streets of gold right there. Federal Reserve notes, these corporations, this is their heaven, and they should enjoy it. That's why I don't let them enjoy it, because it's all going to be destroyed, because this is a temporary kingdom. It's a temporary kingdom. It's not going to last. These dollars are going to flow in the streets as worthless soon. It's not going to last. These banks are going to collapse for real. It's not going to be no engineered thing like we saw in 2008. It's going to collapse for real, and they're not going to have any power to stop it. And the Bible says the merchants of the earth are going to be weeping and wailing when they see this thing collapse and be destroyed. This kingdom is temporary. The one we're getting, where the streets are made of gold, where we're going to eat of a tree that's going to cause us to live forever, where we're going to have eternal youth and never be tired, where there's going to be no more sorrow or crying, nobody weeping and wailing, nobody in pain, no more disease and death, where that's going to not exist anymore. That's the one you want. And the principles of that kingdom are the principles of righteousness. And the righteousness that we need is a spotless, perfect righteousness that we can only receive from the Father. It does not exist in any of the institutions on this earth. The perfect righteousness that we need does not exist in any of the religions or institutions of this planet. It does not. It cannot. Only you can get that from the Father. You can't go to nobody's church and get it. You could only get that from the Father. And he says, aside me, there is no God. He says, I know not any. Aside me, he says, I know not any. There is no God beside me. Right? He said, I know not any. I'm looking for that verse. I think it's Isaiah 45. I think it's Isaiah 45. I think it's Isaiah 45. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Isaiah 45. Isaiah 45. And I want you to notice who he mentions here. I want you to notice who he mentions here. Yeah. I want you to notice who he mentions here. Notice what it said. Isaiah 45, I'm going to start at verse. Well, let me start at verse 1 and go down to verse 6. Okay? From verse 1 to verse 6. Notice what it says. Thus saith Yahweh to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him. And I will loose the loins of kings to open before him the two-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut. And I will go before thee and make the crooked places straight. And I will break in pieces the gates of brass and cut in sunder the bars of iron. And I will give thee the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places, that thou mayest know that I, Yahweh, which called thee by thy name, am the Elohim of Israel. For Jacob my servant's sake, and Israel mine elect, I have even called thee by thy name. I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me. I am Yahweh, and there is none else. There is no God beside me. I girded thee, though thou hast not known me, that they may know from the rising of the sun and from the west that there is none beside me. I am Yahweh, there is none else. See that? There's none else. He's the only one. He's the only one. Praise the Most High. Yeah. He's the only one. So, brothers and sisters, while the rest of the earth is looking to all these churches and all these different ones, we are looking to the God of Jacob, the one who has chosen Israel. Here he's talking about a heathen king, a Persian king named Cyrus. See, there were two Cyruses. There was Cyrus the Median that first took the kingdom from the Babylonians with the help of the Persians. Then there was the Persian king Cyrus, who decreed that the Israelites should go back and rebuild Solomon's temple. But he said he did all that, and he surnamed this heathen king for his people, for his chosen, for Jacob's sake. He said, I chose you. You don't even know who I am. And I surnamed you and chose you and called you before you even came into existence for my people's sake. See, the kingdom is the Most High. And we want to serve the Father. Messiah said to the Father, I want you to glorify me with the glory that I had with you before the earth was. Before the earth was. See, brothers and sisters, we serve the only true creator. And he has shown us to honor him by keeping his covenant, including the Sabbath. And check it out. He tells us to honor him by us resting. Huh? He said, I want you to honor me by taking your rest. I want you to rest from your labors. I want you to rest from your problems, from your issues. I want you to not see. That's why the enemy tries so hard to mess with us on the Sabbath, doesn't it? He tries to get us to fight, argue, debate something, especially on that day, because he knows we serve the Creator, and we're a small number. Yet we scare the enemy to no end because we're a small number, but we serve the Creator, who spoke the earth into existence with his word. Spoke it, and it was. Okay? Spoke it. And made us by hand in his own image. Though now we've been degraded through centuries of sin, he wants to reform us, starting with our mind and our spirit of righteousness that he gives us. He wants to start with that. Okay? So now we're going to go into Isaiah. We're going to go into Daniel chapter 8 today. And I want to, this is going to be a journey. Daniel 8 is vital. And I want to tell you why. Now, we set the foundation. As I said, the foundation was set with Daniel 2. And then we went into Daniel 7. And we saw the important thing about Daniel 7, among many important things, was the rise of the little horn. When you see we saw the rise of the little horn, right? And when you see the rise of the little horn, you understand that it's Rome that's changing. It's Rome that's changing from just a political power into a religious power. Now, in Daniel 8, you're going to see it also. You're going to also see it in Daniel 8. But now you're going to see something that's going to bother Daniel very much. You see, the longest time prophecy in the Bible is in Daniel chapter 8. The longest time prophecy in the Bible is in Daniel chapter 8. And this time prophecy that's in Daniel chapter 8 encompasses all the events that take place from the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem all the way to when the Messiah goes into the most holy place. Now, let's just stop here and review for a second. You remember when we studied, before we started this whole study on the book of Revelation, you remember we studied about the sanctuary, right? Y'all remember we studied about the sanctuary, and with regard to the sanctuary, we talked about how the Messiah is in the sanctuary and the Father placed him there for the purpose of causing his people to overcome all their sin, right? To cause all of our sin to come off of us. To cause all of our sin to come off of us. And cause his spirit of righteousness to come on us, right? Right. You remember that, right? And you remember how when we studied the sanctuary, right, we saw that there were two apartments or rooms, if you will, in the sanctuary. There was the holy place where you had the 7 golden candlesticks, right? You had the table of the showbread, right? Right? And you had an altar of incense, okay? And then you had the second part, which is the most holy place, right? The most holy place, where you have the Ark of the Covenant, and you have the covenant, and there's a golden censer. They're supposed to take some incense, put it on there, and bring it in there, and then the covenant is covered with a top that has 2 angels on it that's called the mercy seat. That's where the Father meets with the high priest. And that this sanctuary is basically a copy of an original that's in heaven, right? So, okay, now we saw also that the high priest ministered in the first compartment every day. Okay, every day he ministers for the nation in the first apartment. But once a year, okay, once a year, he go into the most holy place. And why does he do that? Because the Bible shows us he's cleansing the sanctuary. What does that mean? That means every day when the nation of Israel is confessing their sins, every day in the blood of the Lamb, the sins are being taken off of them and righteousness being put on them, and the sins being placed in the most holy place of the sanctuary. They're not just going anywhere. The spirit of those sins are going in the most holy place. And once a year, the high priest went into that most holy place, and he went with blood for himself and for the nation. And all of those sins were taken out. Spirit was taken out of the most holy and put on a scapegoat. And then a goat was killed, and then there was a scapegoat, right? Okay. Now, we know that literally, when we looked at Revelation chapter 1, literally, Messiah was shown in the holy place because we saw the 7 golden candlesticks, right? I mean, right? Y'all remember that, right? Remember he said, I heard a voice and I turned to see the voice, and there were 7 golden candlesticks. Remember that? Okay. So, okay. So that being the case, we have at some point, Messiah has to go into the most holy place. Isn't that correct? At some point, Messiah has to go into the most holy place. Okay. Now, this is all right. I want to make sure you'll hear me now, because this is very detailed. What I'm getting ready to show you is very detailed. It's not hard, but it's detailed. Okay. It's not hard, but it's detailed. Nothing is not hard. I'm just telling you, it's not complicated, but it's detailed. It's very detailed because this sanctuary is very detailed. Okay, listen carefully. Okay, you ready? Listen carefully. Many of y'all won't remember. In fact, let me test you before I make an assumption that y'all don't remember. Let me test you. What day of the year did the high priest and Aaron's and Moses tabernacle and the tabernacle that Moses made, the Day of Atonement, what day of the year did the high priest go into the most holy place? What day of a specific day in a specific month? What month and what day did the high priest go into the most holy place? What month and what day? Talk to me. I know most of y'all ain't gonna remember. Neither of those. Neither of those. Seventh month. Castro got that part. The seventh month is the seventh month. That's correct. The seventh month. Now talk to me about what day of the seventh month. It was the seventh month, but what day of the seventh month? Nope, not the 15th day. Let me ask the question one more time because make sure y'all got me clear. What day and what month did the high priest go into the most holy place to cleanse the sanctuary? What day and what month? The seventh month is correct. Now, what day of the seventh month? Let me give you the scriptures. Are you ready? Listen carefully now. Y'all need to know this. Brother David got it. Brother David got it. But let me give you the scriptures. Brother David got it. Let me give you the scriptures because y'all need to know this now. Y'all need to know this code because I'm gonna show you why. It has to do with end time prophecy. So that's why I'm harping on it. Okay. It's Leviticus 23 from verse 26 down to verse 32. Okay. Okay. Leviticus 23 from verse 26 to verse 32. Watch carefully. Y'all need to know this one now because this is end time prophecy, believe it or not. Okay. And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, watch carefully. Also, on the 10th day of this 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be an holy convocation unto you, and ye shall afflict your souls, and offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. And ye shall do no work in that self same day, for it is a day of atonement, to make an atonement for you before Yahweh your Elohim. For whatsoever soul it be that shall not be afflicted in that same day, he shall be cut off from among his people. And whatsoever soul it be that doeth any work in that same day, the same soul will I destroy from among his people. And ye shall do no manner of work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. And it shall be unto you a Sabbath of rest, and ye shall afflict your souls in the 9th day of the month at even, from even unto even ye shall celebrate your Sabbath. Okay, wait. Listen carefully now. The 10th day of the 7th month. What happens? I'm going to ask you this question. I know I just read it, but I'm going to test you. I need y'all to know this. What happens on the 10th day of the 7th month for the Hebrews? What happens on that day? What happens on that day? Explain to me what happens. There's an atonement. That's right. What does that mean? What happens on the Day of Atonement? What is going on that day? The 10th day of the 7th month that we just read. What is happening? That's right. Thank you, Sister Gray. That's exactly right. The high priest is going into the most holy place. You got it? Everybody got that? The high priest is going into the most holy place. For what purpose? To take all the sins of the nation out the sanctuary that they have confessed and put them on the scapegoat, to cleanse the sanctuary from all the sins that the nation has confessed. That's right. It's not for Babylon. It's not for Egypt. It's not for Greece. It was for the nation of Israel. Notice it's Leviticus 23. Is he talking to the whole earth, or is he talking to the nation of Israel in Leviticus 23? Who is he talking to? He's talking to the nation of Israel. He's talking to the Israelite nation, and he's saying, This is what's going to happen on the 10th day of the 7th month. Okay. Now, y'all listening? Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, wait a minute. Listen carefully now. Listen carefully. Follow me now. Very good. Y'all got it so far. Now follow me. Now, when we looked at Revelation chapter 1, Messiah is the high priest. He was in the holy place. So when he goes into the most holy, right? When he goes into the most holy, how long he's supposed to be in there? How long is he supposed to be in the most holy place for the nation? When he goes in there, how long he's, that's right, 1 day. That's right. 1 day. That's correct. Why? It's called what? It's called the Day of Atonement. Is that correct? It's called the Day of Atonement. Everybody follow me so far? Okay, very good. Excellent, 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 excellent. Okay. Now, in Bible prophecy, though, 1 day is equal to what? In Bible prophecy, 1 day is equal to 1 year. That's right. We say, where are you getting that from? That's Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 9. That's Numbers chapter, I believe it's chapter 23. Wait, let me make sure. I think it's Numbers. Hold on. It's Numbers. Let me make sure I got this correct. It's Numbers 16. Make sure. Hold on, Bubba Louise. I'll make sure I got this correct. I'll make sure, brother, make sure he got this thing tight. Numbers 14 is Numbers chapter 14. Hold on. It's Numbers 14:34. That's right. Thank you. It's Numbers 14:34. Right. I'll make sure I got it right. So it's Ezekiel 4:9 and Numbers 14. So it's 1 day for a year. Now wait. We're going to read Daniel. And I'm giving you the overview right now. We can get ready to get deep into it, but I want to give you the overview. So you saw that on earth, Aaron went into the most holy place on the 10th day of the 7th month. Y'all saw that. Everybody saw that, right? And he's supposed to only be in there 1 day. Okay. And right. And then what happens? Wait, right. You're going to go back to Leviticus 23. What happens 5 days later? 5 days later, something happens. There's the Day of Atonement on the 10th day of the 7th month, and there's something that happens 5 days later. Something happens 5 days later. What happens 5 days later? Very good, Sister Kim. It's the Feast of Tabernacles. So you have on the 10th day of the 7th month, the Day of Atonement, where the sanctuary gets cleansed. 5 days later, there's the Feast of the Tabernacles, or the Feast of Ingathering. Okay? And we studied earlier where we say we believe that the Messiah is going to return on the 15th day of the 7th month of some year, which we don't know. But it's not the 15th day of the Gregorian calendar 7th month. It's the 15th day of the Hebrew 7th month, right? Because we know the Hebrew 7th month is not the Gregorian calendar 7th month, because the Hebrew New Year starts 3 or 4 months, almost 4 months after the Gregorian calendar New Year, right? The Gregorian calendar New Year is somewhere around January 1st, and the Hebrew New Year is somewhere in April, right? So we know it's like 3 months plus later, right? So if we're talking about the 7th month in the Gregorian calendar, somewhere around July, we're talking September, October for the Hebrew 7th month. Y'all follow me so far? I mean, right? You follow me so far? So it changes based on the new moons, but I'm saying, but generally speaking, if you talk about the 7th month of the Gregorian calendar, of the Hebrew calendar is 3 months later. right? So you're talking about September, October sometime. So the 15th day of the 7th month of the Hebrew calendar was the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, again, it's 5 days after the Day of Atonement. 5 days later. Okay? 5 days later. All right. Now, that being the case, okay, let me, I'm going, there's so much information. I got to break this down bit by bit because there's so much information. I don't want to confuse you. That's why I'm taking my time. I'm taking my time as methodically as I can. And I may not be doing a good job. I pray to the Most High for his spirit. Okay. Every feast that the Most High gave the nation, and there were 3 feasts that he gave the nation. There was the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is the same as the Passover. They're not 2 separate feasts. There's 2 parts of one feast. Okay, there's the Passover and there's the Feast of Unleavened Bread. They're 2 parts of one feast. Then there's the Feast of Pentecost, which is the Feast of Weeks. Same thing. Then at the end of the year, the 7th month, the 15th day of the month, there's the Feast of Tabernacles. 3 feasts throughout the year. Some people talk about a Feast of Trumpets. There's no such thing as a Feast of Trumpets. There's a blowing of trumpets that prepares the people for the Day of Atonement that's 10 days later. Okay? That's not a feast. The Day of Atonement's not a feast. It's a solemn assembly. In fact, it's life or death. And there's the trumpets that's preparing the people for that Day of Atonement. Y'all follow me, testing? But there's only 3 feasts. Now, each feast had some biblical prophetic event that went with it. Every feast has a biblical prophetic event that goes with it, and the Day of Atonement has a biblical prophetic event that goes with it. Let's go through them real quick. The Passover, which is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. What went with that? You all tell me, what prophetic event went with the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread? What prophetic Bible event happened with that feast? Okay, what happened with that feast that was prophetic and biblical, and it happened with that feast? It happened, it coincided at the exact time of that feast. That's exactly right. So the Lamb, which is Messiah, paying the penalty, being portrayed and being turned over to the Gentiles and being put to death and rising up, all that prophetically happened on the exact time of the literal Passover and Feast of Unleavened Bread. Correct? Testing 1, 2, 3. Are you following me so far? Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay. The next feast, which is the Feast of Weeks, what prophetic biblical event took place on the Feast of Weeks? The exact day of that's right. The day, that was the day that the Holy Ghost or the Spirit of the Father was especially poured out, what we call the early rain from Joel. It was especially poured out on the Pentecost. Isn't that correct? It said when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all of one accord and in one place. It happened 50 days after the rising of the Messiah. Y'all follow me so far? I can go into more detail, but I'm just giving you an overview right now. So for every biblical feast or the Day of Atonement, there's a prophetic event that takes place. Okay. Now, if it was following in order that same year, AD, which is AD 31, all that happened in AD 31. There should have been something that happened later on that year in the 7th month, in the 10th day of the month, right? I mean, right? I mean, if Messiah was crucified and resurrected in the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the Passover, 50 days later, early rain was poured on the disciples and the apostles. Acts chapter 2, right? 50 days later, on the day of Pentecost. There should have been something that took place in the 7th month on the 10th day of the month. And there should have been something that took place prophetically on the 15th day of the 7th month of that year, but there wasn't. Why not? Why not? There wasn't. Why not? Daniel chapter 8 is why. Because there was going to be a delay. There was going to be a long delay. And where's the delay prophesied? It's prophesied. Now, we're going to read chapter 8 in detail, but I'm giving you all the backdrop right now. But I want to give you all the highlight. Okay? Daniel 8:14. Daniel 8:14. Notice what it says. Daniel 8:14. Daniel 8:14. Watch carefully. And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. That's the reason that in AD 31, nothing happened for the Day of Atonement and nothing happened for the Feast of Tabernacle because of this 2,300-year prophecy that had to be fulfilled. Notice what it says. After 2,300 days, what shall happen? It says the sanctuary shall be cleansed. See, the cleansing of the sanctuary was the next thing after the feast of Pentecost and the outpouring of the early rain. The next thing was the cleansing of the sanctuary. But now he's saying here there's going to be a 2,300-year delay before that happens. So, in other words, listen carefully. Are you following me so far? I want to make sure I didn't lose you all right there. So, in AD 31, Messiah was crucified and resurrected. That was the Passover. In AD 31, 50 days later, the outpouring of the Holy Spirit came, the Father's Spirit came on the disciples of the Israelites. Is that correct? That was 50 days later. But nothing else happened because there's a 2,300-year delay. Okay? Now, okay, y'all, okay, I'm glad you're following. Now listen carefully. Now, when we looked at Revelation, we saw in chapter 1 that the Messiah was in the holy place. He wasn't in the most holy place, right? He wasn't in the most holy place, correct? Now, at the end of the book of Revelation, he comes back. So at some point in the book of Revelation, you would expect to see the Messiah go from the holy place to the most holy place. Y'all hearing me? Testing 1, 2, 3. At some point in the book of Revelation, you would expect to see the Messiah, because he cannot come back until after he comes out from the most holy place. He's got to go to the most holy place first, and then he's going to come back. So we see him returning in the book of Revelation. In several places, we see him returning. We see him returning in Revelation chapter 6. We see him returning in Revelation chapter 14. We see him returning in Revelation chapter 19. So before all of those events take place, he has to go into the most holy place and cleanse the sanctuary. We see him in the holy place in chapter 1. So at some point, we got to see him go into the most holy. Daniel is telling us there's a 2,300-year period that has to go by before he does that. What we're going to find out when we look at Daniel 8 and Daniel 9 is the beginning of that 2,300-year period and the end of the 2,300-year period. And what we're going to see, I want to make sure we differentiate. The end of the 2,300 years is not the return of the Messiah. That's not what the scripture said. It said, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. So the Day of Atonement in heaven is going to take place or has taken place at the end of the 2,300 years. So we need to find out from the Bible, where does this 2,300 year begin and where does it end? Does that make sense, brothers and sisters? Because then we know when the Messiah goes into the most holy place. Everybody following me so far? All right, everybody got me so far? So that's important because he has to go in there to take the sin off all his people and seal us in the Father's righteousness. He's got to do that. And remember what Revelation said about the 144,000. It said, hold the winds until what? Remember what he said? He told the angel, said, hold the four winds until what? What did he say? Hold the four winds until we have what? Talk to me now. Until we have done what? Until we have sealed the servants of our God in their forehead. And he said, and I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Right. So he's saying, hold the winds until we seal the servants. The servants are not sealed until the Messiah finishes the work in the sanctuary. Okay, everybody, you follow me so far? Okay, you follow me so far? Okay, so this is just the backdrop. Now we're going to get into detail about these things as we study Daniel chapter 8. I'm going to study that tomorrow. I wanted to make sure that we had this background. And please go back over this and look at the scriptures that we talked about. Because tomorrow when we go into this, we're going to go into detail. And it's going to be a lot of vision and a lot of stuff that we need to learn. And I wanted y'all to get this backdrop. So you understand that each feast represents a prophetic event. The Day of Atonement represents a prophetic event. You'll understand that in prophecy, a day is equal to a year. Okay? And that there's a 2,300 year period from some point until when the heavenly sanctuary gets cleansed, when the Messiah goes into the most holy place. Yes, a 2,300 year period. Now we got to know when that time period began. And then we'll know when it ends. The Bible will show us. Okay, it will show us when it began. It will show us when it ends. And I'm going to let y'all show us from the scriptures. I'm going to let y'all show us. Okay, I'm going to let you show me. Okay, this is how simple it is. I'm going to let you show me. No need to guess. Y'all know better than to guess. Y'all was guessing about about the Day of Atonement. Y'all need to stop guessing. Don't guess, because you're just going to confuse yourself when you guess. Don't guess. Okay, don't guess. Let's let the Bible teach us, and we'll that's right. Let's let the Bible show us, and then if we don't know, we don't know. But what we do know, we will find from the scriptures. Okay? Don't guess though, because you start guessing, and that's how people get all thrown off. And a lot of people start taking their guesswork too seriously, and then also they start getting offended when their guesses is off. I mean, isn't that crazy? But that's what happens, right? So let's let the scriptures show us, and then we'll know when this 2,300 years began and when it ends, and what happens, and why it happens. Okay, and what's next? The Bible shows us all of that. But we're going to begin in Daniel 8. Now, I will say this. We studied that little horn, and that little horn is going to appear in Daniel chapter 8. Now, I want to make sure y'all understand who the little horn is. What is the little horn? Testing 1, 2, 3. Tell me now. Tell me as we're closing now. I'm going to give you a little. What is who is the little horn? That's right. The papacy is the little horn, the office of the Pope. It doesn't matter who's in the office. Okay, the papacy itself is the little horn. Okay, every time one of them die, they get black smoke. They go into some seance and whatever, and they come out and they pick a new one, right? So they pick a new pope. Okay, it doesn't matter who he is. That's the little horn. That's the head of the papacy. Papacy's the little horn. Okay, now we're going to study that in chapter 8 in detail. You're going to see it. Remember also, you need to remember the 4 kingdoms: Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, and Rome. You're going to need to remember those 4 kingdoms when we study this in Daniel chapter 8 tomorrow. All of that's going to come into play. All right. I'm trying to give you all a nice heads up so you can go back and look at this thing. And we're going to get into this tomorrow in great detail. Like I said, I wanted to, because there's a lot of information. It's not complicated. It's just there's a lot here. That's all it is. It's just a lot. And so that's why. And if we had I want to take my time and give it to y'all, but at the same time, I want to move through it so that we could be here for months and months just studying chapter 8. There's no question. But we don't want to take months and months to study chapter 8. So I just want to give you a little overview and then we're going to get into it in detail. Okay? But Daniel 8:14 is why there's a delay between Pentecost and the Day of Atonement. It's that Daniel 8:14. That's why there's a delay. Okay? Okay? So we're going to look closely at that. And that 2,300 year period covers a lot. It covers a lot. But we're going to talk about that tomorrow by the grace of the Most High. Okay? Let's have a word of prayer, and we can close for this evening.